As you know, one of the videos that we do on our continuing series is we talk about how Republicans are and have fled the Republican Party, which has gone full MAGA. They don't support Trump. They recognize the threat to democracy. They recognize the threat to our national security. I've recently been doing videos, and this one's going to be one of them, featuring pissed off Democrats at the way the media and even the way some other Democrats are treating President Biden. I want to break this down with data. I want to be very data-driven in this approach, and I want to share some stories. So the first data point I want to give you is, once again, the stock market is closing at record highs. Now, that shouldn't be used to ultimately determine, the success of a presidency or the status of our economy, but it certainly was when Donald Trump was in office. I want to show you some additional data points. I don't like polls. I've never been a fan of them, but if you want to cherry pick polls, I can show you polling data that contradicts any polling data that you have. In fact, the most recent 538 polling data has President Biden in the strongest position yet. It has President Biden up 54 to 46 out of 100 simulations. Let me show you some other data. We look at a very good poll, Public Policy, out of Wisconsin. President Biden's up 1 there. I show you another poll in Virginia. President Biden's up 5 there. As Doug Saunders said, for the first time in 23 years, the USA isn't at war. It's experiencing full employment and rising living standards, not seen in decades. Crime and violence are falling to record lows. It's energy independent, yet on the Republican side, the leading candidate goes on about it's a civilization collapse. Nicholas Grossman explains, if the United States loses its democracy, it will be the dumbest slide into authoritarianism in history. Other cases had mass unemployment, a major war, something. None have done it with low unemployment, rising real wages, declining crime, no troops fighting in foreign wars, while our foreign alliances have never been stronger. Our GDP growth has really never been higher. We're beating China in GDP growth. We have 40,000 infrastructure projects across the country. We have low unemployment. I can go on and on and on. But what is different about this time is we have a propaganda media, and we also have this. Let me show you the list of the hashtag billionaire vote. Dozens and dozens of billionaires lining up because they believe Donald Trump will line their pockets with tax cuts. It's like the biggest historical fallacy ever. I mean, if you just study history, to think that the dictator, the strongman, is not going to take your money, but give you benefits and tax cuts. One of the first things he's going to do, which you see strongmen do across the world and across history, is they're going to go into the billionaires' bank accounts and snatch it. Yet the billionaires falling for the same fallacy again, but they are all lined up for Donald Trump against the working class. And then you have the Fox and other propaganda machines and corporate media also spewing this BS and nonsense to try to pit people against each other who President Biden's policies actually help. I want to share the stories right now of Democratic voters. And I want to share them because this is the base of the Democratic Party. And I want to explain something here. I want to explain why the base of the Democratic Party, why hardworking Democrats, or at this point, people who just consider themselves part of a pro-democracy community, are absolutely pissed off at the media coverage of President Biden and at the elites, even other Democrats who are attacking President Biden and often attacking President Biden through leaks. Look, President Biden has had an actual positive impact on the lives of Americans. Now, President Biden has not done it in a flashy way. President Biden doesn't do tweets where he does all caps. President Biden doesn't do stunts. He doesn't go around and do phony crap. He doesn't sell sneakers the way Donald Trump, less than 72 hours after a horrific event in Butler, Pennsylvania, tries to profit off of it and sells fight, assassination attempt sneakers for $299. That's not President Biden's style. But President Biden has done a lot for people, whether it's the Inflation Reduction Act and the Infrastructure Act, which saved America from going into a recession. Remember the same media that's talking about the polls right now? Remember when they said there was a 100%, they didn't even leave any room, 100% chance of recession. Remember that? But they don't give President Biden credit for America not falling into a recession when they had it at 100%. So you had the Inflation Reduction Act, the CHIPS Act, bringing the semiconductor industry back here to the United States. You have the PACT Act. Think about it. Over 1 million veterans have filed claims under the PACT Act for life-saving care that they would not have otherwise been able to but for President Biden's legislation. President Biden passed the first major gun safety legislation in decades. He took out the leader of Al-Qaeda, historic job growth, historically low unemployment, expanded the NATO alliance. The America Rescue Plan led to the fastest jobs recovery in history. America's GDP is growing faster than any G7 nation. The confirmation of Justice Ketanji Brown Jackson. President Biden has also appointed more federal judges than anybody at this point in time, and certainly by far more diverse federal judges than anybody in history. President Biden rallied our allies in support of Ukraine and gave once-in-a-generation infrastructure investments. Now, I know that Donald Trump wants to take credit for the stock market right now under President Biden, which is record highs, and corporate media will let him get away with it, even though you know that your 401k plan is up because of President Biden. President Biden has done things that actually help people. And for the base of the Democratic Party, let me be very clear to all the elites out there in the corporate media. This is not a freaking game, okay? The people have seen what the Supreme Court has done, taking away people's rights, overturning Roe v. Wade, overturning all forms of affirmative action, overturning the Voting Rights Act, overturning any separation of church and state, ruling that Donald Trump is allowed to be a dictator. That's an actual ruling they made, that he should be entitled to absolute immunity, that bump stocks and other weapons of war should just proliferate across the country. We've seen what this right-wing Supreme Court's done. We know what Project 2025 means.
MeidasTouch is brought to you by bookshop.org. You may be watching or listening to our show right now, but are you reading enough? It's time to dive back into books and conquer that reading goal you set for yourself this year with bookshop.org. There are so many great books out right now that help you make sense of this moment. Or maybe you just want to get away from the political noise and unwind with a good novel. Bookshop.org has just the book you're looking for. Bookshop.org is unapologetically anti-Amazon. Why? Because when you purchase from bookshop.org, you're supporting local independent bookstores so they'll be around for all of us to enjoy in the future. They're committed to helping independent bookstores not just survive, but thrive and continue to foster culture, curiosity, and a love of reading in your community. Bookshop.org has raised over $30 million from local bookstores. You can even pick which bookstore you want to support, whether it's your local bookstore or your hometown favorite. Bookshop.org is truly for everyone who loves to read and knows the power of a good book. I just finished reading The Attributes, 25 Hidden Drivers of Optimal Performance by Rich Davini, and I cannot recommend it enough. This is one of Bookshop.org's bestsellers, and after reading through it, I totally understand why. Start feeling good about where you buy books. Use code Meidas to get 10% off your next order at bookshop.org. That's code Meidas, M-E-I-D-A-S, to get 10% off at bookshop.org.
And this is not some game. This is not some, oh, well, what if we do this and maybe we substitute this quarterback for this quarterback. People know that President Biden has actually delivered and helped their lives. They also know that there was a primary that took place. And President Biden was challenged by a few people. And despite the media saying there was going to be this exodus away from President Biden, what we saw is that there was a 20% protest vote of Donald Trump. And when it came to President Biden, 85, 90% in all of the primaries. There was not any exodus that the media predicted, the same way the media predicted there was going to be a red wave and the media said 100% chance of recession. That didn't happen. Okay, and President Biden won the primaries. 14 million people voted for him, and they don't like being told by other people that their vote doesn't matter. And especially when you have a dream team, this is how people feel of both President Biden and Vice President Harris. Together, you get the best of both worlds collectively. And the people are saying, stop messing with our lives. Stop these freaking games, elites. That's what they are saying. By the way, I have a longer list right here of all of the accomplishments President Biden has done, and it's very detailed. I'll put it up there if you want to take a screenshot and go item by item. But let me just share with you some of the types of comments I've been seeing, like this one. First way to get people to stay at home and not vote: white politicians and celebrities picking their choice instead of who we the people chose. Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are our nominees. Let me show you this other comment. I'm in Red, Ohio. I don't see too many Trump signs. They may pop up now and then as he just picked his VP, but people are sick of him. They just want peace and not chaos. Every Democrat needs to unite behind Biden. Biden is valuable because he has the incumbency advantage. This is because he's more well-known than anyone in the party right now. Who agrees with me Biden should not drop out? Edits. Plus, people in their own blue states might not know who their senators, congressmen, or even who their governor is. Another comment: stop trying to take my vote away for Biden. I'm with Joe. Your shameful behavior is fracturing the party, and you're going to be responsible for electing Trump, an insurrectionist wannabe, a convicted felon, and a wannabe dictator. It's time to unite the party. Democrats are now looking weak. 14 million people voted for President Biden in the primaries. If you get a new candidate now, you're not going to get the votes. And people are saying how disappointed they are in people and saying who are now turning on him and saying this is a reckless act. Pundits don't elect presidents. You can't possibly allow Republicans to nominate and rally around a convicted felon, and the Dems' response is to kick out their elder statesman, elected official, out the door. What's wrong with you? The media does not elect a president. Polls don't elect a president. Pundits don't elect a president. Stop this recklessness. You will lose without Biden. Stacy Blanco goes, are we all missing something? Is there something beyond trash polling that either Nancy Pelosi and her friends know that we don't know? Like, what is going on here? And then Monica Monroe goes, they've truly moved on from the RNC ratings failure to reporting about things that we simply don't care about. Until Pelosi, Schumer, Schiff talk to actual black people about what it is that we want, kindly STFU. And I can tell you when I speak to black Democratic voters who are the base of the Democratic Party, when I speak to other working class people in the Democratic Party, they tell me, Ben, President Biden has delivered for us. And then when I look at all of the objective data, when I look at the economic data, all objective criterion that we used to judge presidents by. So I could go by the objective data, objective criteria, which is why, by the way, you have Donald Trump right now threatening the chairman of the Fed, Chairman Powell, to not lower interest rates because Trump thinks if he can screw over we the people, that could help him. So that's one of the things they're trying to do. Threaten the Fed Chairman Powell into not lowering interest rates. The same way Donald Trump stopped a bipartisan immigration bill that President Biden pushed. By the way, border crossings right now are down significantly. And you read that other comment that talks about the ratings. The RNC ratings were down 21% from 2016 as of Monday night because America is tired of this Trump show. Even if the Beltway media loves it and they want it. People don't want chaos. People want normalcy. That's one of the things they actually like about President Biden. They don't care if he's 81 years old and he stutters. They know what he's delivered. And they don't want all caps. They don't want assassination sneakers being sold. They don't want someone who attacks sexual assault victims in tweets and posts and who cuddles up with Vladimir Putin and Kim Jong-un. They don't want that. And it's so important that we recognize there's a reason why in all of these primaries where there's actual data, President Donald Trump is underperforming, President Biden overperforms, and that's what we've seen time and time again. And then what polls are you even citing? I get that there are some polls, that show Donald Trump up. There's lots of polls that show Biden up. At worst right now, it's like a toss-up. At worst, you could say it's a toss-up slightly favoring Trump. If I accept that argument, in October, Biden was down like 4 points to Mitt Romney. So what are we talking about in July? Over a debate? Over one debate? Ultimately for me, what this network is about, first and foremost, it's about values, principles, and results, and analyzing the data about those things. So tell me what you think, but those are my views. Hit subscribe. Let's get to 3 million together.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Midas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.